House Ways and Means member Nicole Malliotakis joins us now. Welcome, Congresswoman. Thank you for joining us. First, how did you get this done? Because the margin is so thin and the conference is not a monolith. So how'd you pull it off?
Well, hats off to Speaker Johnson, the leadership team, as well as Chairman Guthrie, who is the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, who really did an amazing job working with all of us, working through some of our concerns, making sure that we received assurances, particularly as it related to the savings in the Medicaid space, that it wasn't going to affect our seniors, our disabled, children with disabilities, and our hospitals, by lowering the floor on the map in which, for example, New York State gets reimbursed 50% currently. So these were all real concerns that we've had, and they worked through it, and we were able to come up with a product that is a framework. Of course, there's no specific details in there, but it is a framework and a blueprint that allows us to move this process forward to implement President Trump's agenda that includes not only a savings that will put our country back on a responsible fiscal track so we can start paying down our $37 trillion in debt, but also that implements some of the tax cuts, these savings going to the middle-class families that we represent. We'll also be able to implement some of his new priorities, which happen to be priorities of mine: reducing taxes on tipped workers, reducing taxes on senior citizens, repatriating manufacturing here in the United States, particularly for sensitive supply chains like pharmaceuticals, and making sure we get some type of relief for state and local tax deduction for members like me that represent New York, so we can help our middle-class families stay in their homes.
All right, Congresswoman, what do you think will be the hardest part of working this out with the Senate? I mean, given that failure is not an option, it's got to be worked out. Where do you think the sticking points may be?
Well, I think, look, President Trump played a role here as well, obviously, speaking to some of the last-minute members that had been holding back their votes. And I think that when the Senate returns a bill to us, it may be even more difficult to pass in the House, considering the trouble that we had the first time around. So I think some of the sticking points between the House and the Senate will probably be around the various tax cuts. I know the Senate would like to see the tax cuts made permanent, as does the president, as does Ways and Means members like myself. But the issue is we did not have enough instruction. We did not have enough of a top line for our committee to be able to make those tax cuts permanent, or even extend them for 10 years if we want to do the other priorities that are critically important for the middle class families that we represent, and the ones that the president talked about on the campaign trail. So we'll have to see how that all comes together. And some of the other things will be the difference in the savings goals. I imagine seeing their first product that the Senate is less concerned about making big cuts than some of the House members are. We have some members who really wanted to make broad cuts, which concerned some of us because we didn't know where those cuts were going to come from. And we have to make sure that we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We all want to cut down on fraud, waste, and abuse. We all want to see the Medicaid healthcare system run efficiently, so it is actually helping the people that deserve and are eligible for it, our senior citizens, our people with disabilities, our most vulnerable citizens. We want to make sure we preserve that. And unfortunately, when we make these large type of broad commitments, we don't want to see these unintended consequences. So we have to do this in a very thoughtful, deliberate manner. I like to say to do it with a scalpel and not a sledgehammer. And hopefully we'll come together and be able to pass a resolution that everyone can support so we can actually move into the details, the actual legislative writing that will spell out where everything's going to be coming from and what the benefits of the American people will be. We're certainly in agreement and in line when it comes to energy policy, jump-starting our domestic energy production once again, and when it comes to securing our borders. So I don't imagine those two pieces will give anybody any heartache.
Well, I will say this so you don't have to, and that way I can get the emails. There would be no House majority if it weren't for California and New York Republicans. So SALT, my guess, is a non-negotiable. Nicole Malliotakis, thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thank you.